What is going on, everybody? Kenny Customizer Depot here, and today I am going to be talking about Giardini base coat dents and the mixture of the dense edge paint, the adhesion aid. So what this is going to do right here is this is going to help bond the base coat to the actual leather that you're going to be working on, as well as other mediums, not only just the leather or just leather in general. So it'll help you get something like this onto, you know, like the nylon, as well as working on plastic and things like that. It will work if you use the adhesion aid. It will be a better hold, and it'll get a better grip onto the surface area that you're working on. Now, what I have here is a previous batch of these two mixed together, right? So I have the base coat dents over here, as well as the adhesion aid mixed in together here. Now, something that they told us over at Giardini is once this starts to go bad, number one, it will smell pretty rotten. So right now it smells a little bit like I want to say like lemon and a little bit of cheese, and it's also very gunky, right? So if you can see it right there, you can see how it's very thick, right? So it kind of looks like like what milk would churn to if you leave it in your refrigerator for too long. So it kind of looks like it has like a yogurt consistency, as opposed to, if you can see this right here on the inside, this very well, I mean, it's very easy. It's very liquidy, you know. So this is the perfect consistency. I will show you guys what this looks like in a second, but first what I'm gonna do is, since this looks like that right here, like I'll show you once we take it out. Look at how slow that comes out. That's just gunky. That's no good. I can't use this on watch bands or anything else like that. So now this is the type of job that it leaves. Let's get that out of the way so that it can focus over here. Right there. This is the type of job that it leaves now. Instead of that nice round self-leveling edge, this is the type of edge this is leaving here, like this one. And I want something smooth. I want something that I don't have to work hard with the roller edge to put onto this, right? So this consistency is a problem now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw this out, I'm gonna clean this up, and then I'm gonna mix both the adhesion aid as well as the base coat dents from Giardini, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do this. But first, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna show you guys what it looks like if I were to roll this, like this consistency over here, onto this, right? So this is what I'm gonna do right here. Since there is enough right there to just literally gunk on, right? Usually I tap it off and it comes off very easily. See, that doesn't look like it's self-rounding to me at all. You see that? That is not what we want. This is exactly the opposite. So you see how it doesn't level out. It has this consistency, and you can see the way that it dried on this side, right? You can see the way that it dried on right there, how it looks exactly like that. It has the ripples from the thread on the roller edge tool, just like this, and it looks exactly the same. So now this is exactly what we want to avoid. We want to get a smooth edge. So what we're looking to do with this paint is get something very smooth, just like that. You want something as smooth as humanly possible. This is self-rounding because now this consistency is no longer liquid enough to get all of that the way that we want the paint to go on it. So this is what we're looking for, and this is what we're not getting from this. So let's get everything cleaned out here, and then let's get started with the new mixture. Okay, so now that I cleaned this off, I just made sure that everything is really dry. It's very clear. It also doesn't have any particles left from the last batch inside of here. because then what that's going to do is that's going to help the fermenting process and ruin the new batch. So that's something that you just want to be very, very careful in doing. So, you know, just be careful, clean the crap out of this thing when you do get it. Now, I just want to also show you the literal tensile strength of this. This has been caked on for a couple of months or weeks at this point, but just to give you a gauge on how this, like, you know, it took forever to make this, but you know, like, this still has the things that I poured on top of it still, just so that I can show you what it'll look like on a watch band, but not necessarily, and or how strong it will be. Like, I'm using a scissor and trying to wedge it off, you know, even though this has been on there for a couple of months, and it's definitely had its time to stick together. It's not going anywhere, you know. Here, even just zooming it in, that's just me putting in the scissor and wedging it and essentially ruining the top because I keep warping it. But it's on there really, really hard, which is another reason why I really don't want to leave this on there, so that it can again help with the fermenting process and then ruin it. As Giardini explained to us, you know, their products are living and breathing, you know, before they get applied. So this is how you know that it really works, and which is another reason why we really like working with it. So I'm gonna get off camera and try to take this off and peel this off. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so let's read the directions now that all of this is cleaned up. I have the remnants, but this is the older stuff. It's not the like the newer stuff that's like all fermented and gone bad. So let's leave that off to the side. This is nice and clean. Now, this is the dense edge paint, the 20% adhesion aid, right? So what this is gonna do, again, it's just gonna help the adhesion process of the base coat dense, which is this one. And let's read a little bit of it. So, mixing composed by 80% dense edge paint, which is this one, and 20% adhesion aid. So this is a sample. A component should not be purchased individually. And then you have a whole bunch of stuff that it says after first opening, consume within 6 months. All right, so what I want you to understand about this is that you can mix this with both the base coat dense as well as the paint itself. So you can do that just to make sure that the bond is much stronger. So what it's acting is, it's acting like a primer and or like a bulldog effect, if you will, to get everything stuck to the mediums that you're going to be using. So I counted here 6 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and what I'm gonna do, like, if I multiply 20%, so if it's 20%, it's gonna be like 12. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna fill it up 1.5 bars just to give it that 20% and or a little bit more, just to be on the safe side. So here we go. Now that filled up 1, and there you go, 1.5. Okay, and then I'm gonna fill it up to the actual mark of the last one. So now that it's all in here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it a mix for about a minute. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna check the consistency of it. We're gonna use the camera strap that we have already made, and the way that it finished. So let's zoom in there a little bit. This is from the old batch. All right, you can see that it's not round. It's not rounded at all. And you can see how clumpy this was and how this does not work. Okay, so if you guys can see, this is at a nice milky consistency. It is not gunky at all, and it's ready to be used. Now, the only thing that I will say is that if you can see it the way that it is right now, it is very bubbly. Yeah, if you can check that angle out right there, it's very bubbly, and the reason why is because I just shook it, and the air bubbles that were in from here, from this line all the way up, have officially mixed with the liquid. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna let it sit for another 10 to 20 minutes, let all the bubbles just settle, and then I'm gonna get started with showing you guys how that consistency should look compared to the other side that we did on this camera strap right here, and compare the self-rounding and the self-leveling on this particular edge over here. All right, so we got the consistency down to less bubbles. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna get started and just give a dip. And if you can see the difference of what it looked like before to what it looked like now, it is a massive difference, and it is already self-rounding. But what I'm gonna do, since that there's still a little bit more bubbles, this is the best way to pop them, is to just hit it with the lighter, but not for too long, because you don't want it to dry like that with the heat in that fashion. So now that that is done, you got to make sure that there's nothing on either side. And then, since there's a couple of bubbles, let's just heat them up and pop them that way with the heat. And then give it a nice 2-pass, like up and down. And then we'll wait a couple of minutes, and then we'll see what they look like, and then we'll compare both sides. All right, so what you also want to do is immediately after using it, you see how it's still a little wet? You want to take a cloth or a napkin, or you can take it into like a sink somewhere and rinse it off with warm water immediately after using, and then try to get into the little grooves and the ridges in there, like with your nail or perhaps a mini screwdriver or blade, because then what's going to happen is that that's going to automatically build up. You're not going to grab everything, you know, as if you can get it to focus right here. See, you're always going to get those remnants inside, right? Inside of the grooves. But what's going to happen is that the base coat, what it's going to do is that it has to sit inside of that well to properly roll off and to give that consistent edge throughout the job that you're doing. So that's something that you want to make sure that these grooves and these ridges are clean and or like paint free, so that way you can get a nice consistency. If it's filled up with gunk and things like that, then what's going to happen, like this one, right? This has the black paint on it. What's going to happen is once you roll, it's not going to give you that consistent paint job, because the paint isn't properly rotating with the grooves itself. So it's not going to be picking up any of the paint because it's already on the outside. These are a little bit clean over here. So what's going to happen is that this is going to be like a good line right there. And then when I get to the black part where these are all filled up, this is just going to start to, I'm going to get less paint to go onto the surface area because there's not any in the grooves. So that's why you want to keep your roller tool nice and clean, so that way you can get a really nice looking leather edge. So in case you're wondering, the two best ways to do this, number one is with acetone. That's something that I like to use, but only after. But this is the best way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the blade and I'm going to stick it right into the groove where it's dirty. And then I'm going to lift that up. And then you see that just peels right off. Right? So let's get a little bit more in there so that way you guys can take a look. So now again, I'm going to just be very careful because this is a blade and I don't want to slice my finger wide open because I use those to work. So you see how that just comes right off right there? That just peeled right off. That's exactly what you're looking for and what we're looking for when we're trying to clean this. Right? And this is provided that you don't clean it the right way the first time. I unfortunately do not, but you know, when I have to clean, I clean. So there you go. That just peels right off if you get it. You see how that came out? Looks like a blackhead, you know, like a pimple. But very fun, very satisfying. And once you're done, you're ready to use it, and then we can get started with part 2 of doing this all over again, the second coat on the edge. So the drying time on something like this may take anywhere, depending on how thick or how much of the base coat dense that we put onto this. So what we're gonna, like, this took about a good 8 minutes to dry. So now that this is dry to the touch, right, it's no longer wet and it's no longer rubbing off on my finger, we're ready to go on to for the second coat. But before that, I told you guys that I would show you guys the comparison side by side of what they look like and which one is which, right? So if you can see the main difference, and I'll show you, yeah, so these are the angles, right? This is the new edge that we did, and this is the old edge, right? It sounds like I'm talking about wrestlers. All right, so now right here, I can see it, but I hope that you can see it too. This is where the ridge, remember when I said that there was that ridge with minimal paint on there? That's where that dried up like that, right? So you can see that it's not very flush, because this is lifted up. This has a lot more of the base coat, and this is the new one. And as you can see, look, it's very, very flush, right? There's not much, there's minimal flaws to this that you can see. There's a bubble that popped in the aftermath of heating it up, and this is the opposite side. So this is something that you have to build on, right? And this is something that I explained to you earlier in the video, that you want to put light coats on it. You don't want to put too much, because you want to build on for the roundness. You want to build up to it, right? So if I can't see it, you can see that I put a little bit too much right here, because it is on the whiter side, and it's still translucent, like, so I can still see through it. So that's something that you have to be very, very mindful of. Now, again, here, you can see that it's starting to turn white because there's so much packed in here, yet in this little ridge line right there, it is very see-through-ish. So you can see the black, you can see the leather on the opposite side, so you can see the discoloration. And over here you can see it a lot more compared to this one, you know. So if you see this one, you can see this side where it packed in so much on this edge, and it didn't level itself properly because it was so gunky. And over here, that you have where there's minimal dense edge paint over here. So again, what we're gonna do is we're gonna chop this off. I'm gonna chop this off, and then I'm gonna give it that second coat. But from here, what you can do is, what you can use this to sand it down. I have what grit is this? 600, I believe. I believe this is 600 grit, and I can just sand this down. And this is sand. This is you can sand this down, which is great, especially if you wanted to assist in getting that rounded edge. All right, and since I have to do another coat anyway, it's okay that, you know, this is popping off. This is chipping off. So I'm okay with all of these flaws, because I'm just gonna do it all over again anyway. But in the event that you get something like that, where you get like an extra drip by mistake, because it's always gonna happen. You're always gonna get, if you're hanging something down, like for the camera straps, I have to hang them from somewhere down, so that way this isn't touching anything when it dries. So sometimes I put a little bit too much on the top, and then it drips onto here, and then it drips onto the bottom. So what I'm gonna have to do right there, it builds up right there where it's like a drop right there. So then I have to cut it, and then I have to reshape it, and then I have to repaint it, and everything else like that. So this is something that it comes with a little bit of experience, a little bit of know-how. You got to figure out how to work with these things, and then you're set. So right here, it's very nice sanded down. You can see the grooves have pretty much gone away, and that we're ready to get started with a second coat on the side that we did it with the older fermented Giardini dense edge base coat. All right, so now that these two sides are sanded down, I'm gonna give it another shot of the newly mixed base coat, and then we're gonna get started with painting it, so that way you guys can see how the paint reacts as well. Alright, so nice and easy, no issues. Make sure that you take out the excess. You see, that's the excess that's coming from the bottom. Bam, nothing else in there anymore. So you just want to be careful with that edge, especially because you're going to hang it. Alright, so now let's get on the first side that we did, and we're going to give it that second pass. And then we're gonna wipe it. See, you got a little bit on this side, and then I'm gonna use this finger to see if I have any more on the top. I have a little bit, so I'm just wiping that off. And now I clean my finger, and you see, that's something that, you know, you're gonna have to wipe off just to make sure that there isn't too much of that stuff on the bottom that you're gonna have to paint regardless. And then it'll just look weird because it's an excess of primer and excess of paint. So you're just gonna want to be careful with that. Okay, so now that we got a full roll in, there you go. We're gonna clean it off on both sides. There. I'm gonna try it again. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this dry, and then we're gonna show you again what it looks like after 2 coats. Okay, so now that it is dried for the second time, let us do some quick investigatory work, and let's see where this is shaping up to be at right here. So now this is a rounded edge, but I don't necessarily like it. I could paint it. I could just go with the black dense edge coat and then just go right on top of this, because it is nice and smooth. But what I wanted to do is I want it to be a little bit more rounder. This is, if you can see it from this angle right here. There we go. That's the angle that I want to show you guys. Right? So it's not as round as I want it to be. So I'm gonna hit it with another coat. You see, that's what this dense edge base coat does. So it's a self-rounding, and I do like the way that it came out, especially compared to the opposite side. But I wanted to get a little bit better edge. So let's do it again. I like the way that this one came out. This one was fine, and this one is also fine. This is because it went all the way around, or all the way, and it spread throughout the edge. So this was actually the bad side, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna go over it again, one more coat. So this, remember guys, this is all the same steps over and over and over again. And once you get the hang of it, once you get the understanding and the know-how of how, you know, like the products that you're using or the tools that you're using works, this is going to be much simpler the next few times that you do it. So let's give this another 10 minutes to dry, and we'll come back and we'll see what it looks like after 3 coats. All right, see you in a bit. All right, everybody. So now that we're nearing towards the end of the video, I am going to show you the 2 things that happened, because now that I checked it out, and this is the most perfect one out of all of the edges. The other ones need a little bit of work, but this is it. So now let's get that opposite view right there, so that way you guys can see how it's all nice and round. Let's try to get it so that it's focused right there in the middle, right there. As you guys can see how this is now a round and a rounded edge. So now this is where exactly you want to put the paint on top of it. This is perfect right here. All right. Now this one needs to get sanded down a little bit, and then we're set. So I'm gonna do that off camera. But the beginning started off great. It got a little bit of extra dense edge paint over here, the dense edge coat. Sorry, the dense coat. Oh God, the base coat dense got a little bit too much over here. That was from the angle. I put too much on the top, and then it just crept down. So now from this one, and I'm gonna show you guys because I did talk about it earlier. This one's also really good edge, right here, and how it's nice. And let's just get the fingers there so that way you guys can see. This is a nice rounded edge as well. So this is perfect. And now what I'm gonna be doing is I'm just gonna be fixing these guys. So now, as you can see, this one, it has that little bubble lip, and that's what I told you that it comes over here, sometimes over here at the edge, so or like at the tip of the bottom when things are being hung vertically. So now this I have right here, this is an extra little bubble right there. So what I'm gonna do to rectify this situation, I'm gonna take some little scissors, mini scissors, and I also have these, but I like using these more. I don't like using those. I feel like an old lady when I use those. So now I'm gonna pop that bubble. All right, I didn't have to pop it. I could have just left it the way that it was. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply some heat, and what that allows me to do is remold it and reshape it to my liking. Right? So now this is nice and smooth, and now this edge is completely the way that I like it. Right, so now let's check it out. This is a nice, great round edge. The way that it was before wasn't working out because it had this extra lip right there. But now, the great thing about this is that this isn't going to be visible, especially since I'm going to be putting the black on top of it. So once I put the black, all of the blemishes that are underneath the surface of the black paint is going to be nice and smooth. And well, it has to be nice and smooth before I put it on. But you won't be able to see any of this white, any of the white base coat, because the black is going to go on top, or whatever color that you put on top. Sometimes if it's not white, if it's not black, sometimes you may have to do the base color, the color twice. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. But if you go with the black is going to be just fine, provided that you do the job properly. But see, right here, I could just do the exact same thing. And I'm just going to show you guys that this is what you want to do. You want to just heat this up. I don't really have to sand it down, but I could. And then I'm just going to basically mold it the way that I want, so that way it can be a perfect edge right there. You see? So that's something that you'll learn by doing this a couple of times, if in the event that, you know, like you're getting started with this. That little lip is okay. You know, what I can do is I can just heat it up and then just bam. So it had that extra hole right there that is no longer. If you can see it right there. And now I closed up that hole, and now this is a nice smooth rounded edge. If I wanted to do any of this a little bit more, I just get everything over here on the edges and just pat it down, so that way it goes into that little ridge the way that it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be on the leather. So if these two fingers are the leather, I want it to basically just wrap around. So that's something that this is doing, so that I could get the rounded edge that you see on all of these designer leather edges that you'll get, that you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for at the end of the year. So this is it, guys. This is the Giardini mixing the base coat dents right here with the adhesive promoter, with the adhesive aid. So remember it's 20% of the adhesion aid, as well as 80% of the base coat dents from Giardini. All right, so if you guys want to pick up some Giardini, go check out the description box below. The link is provided right there. It should be directly below, actually. So go check them out. They are the best when it comes to leather edge products. They also have every color that you have. I believe that they came out with some really cool new metallics that we're going to be testing out very soon. So definitely go and check Giardini out, as well as check us out on social media and over at Customizer Depot, customizerdepot.com, for any tutorials and other things like that. Don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and share this video to like-minded individuals that are working on really cool projects that you really want them to step up their game, and or to definitely just show them something new that they can use. All right, guys, once again, Kenny, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Totally appreciate it. Have a great day.